Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, according to DGISPR last briefing that was held on 27th of December 2024, and according to the Islamabad-based think tank, Pakistan Institute of Conflict and Security Studies, PECS, Pakistan witnessed 40% surge in terrorist activities in 2024, recorded at least 905 terrorist attacks, in which 21% of the surge of fatalities. Pakistan's security forces fought bravely against all odds, killed at least 950 terrorists, including 73 high-value targets and also 27 of the Afghan fighters and suicide bombers. To protect motherland from all odds, particularly the terrorism, the surge in terrorism, and in pursuit of peace, stability, economic development and prosperity, at least 527 security forces personnel laid down their life, including 383 officers and soldiers of Pakistan Army and 489 civilians. We all, in fact, whole of the nation, salute them. Besides exploring the rising threat of terrorism, we will also examine the need for a true implementation of the revised National Action Plan, also the implementable strategies to completely eradicate terrorism across Pakistan, especially from Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Since many years, Afghan Taliban adopted a surprisingly, increasingly, an Indian tone, making jingoistic statements and working against Pakistan, deliberately giving refuge to Fitna al-Kharij or TTP, along with Baloch Liberation Army and all other terrorists from Balochistan. Kabul categorized these terrorist groups as their friends, guests, or refugees, given shelter, and now since couple of years, Afghan Interim Authority is also coordinating these attacks against Pakistan. This all, according to many experts, are by design and with proper planning, fueled, facilitated, financed and supported by India, and this all happening in connivance with the United States money and weapons. As the recent Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction report, which was already submitted in Congress, it was unveiled that at least $21 billion transferred to the Afghan Taliban since 2021. It's approximately $40 million a week, and it's through different non-governmental organizations, which is under the Biden administration. Now, whether it's correct that right now there is a proper design and plan against Pakistan from the Afghan soil, there are lots of questions. To get answers of these, we have in our studios Dr. Waseem Ishaque, the senior analyst, and has an ample experience and an eye on international and regional affairs. Most welcome to you, Doctor. Thank you very much for your presence here. And Mr. Abdullah Khan, he is the Managing Director of Pakistan Institute of Conflict and Security Studies, PECS. Most welcome to you. Thank you very much, Abdullah Khan sir. And online joining us, Mr. Zaher Sherazi. He is the senior journalist, has an ample experience when it comes to counter-terrorism campaigns, the security and Afghan affairs. And he is also a senior journalist and my mentor as well, and my colleague in one of the media entities. So most welcome to you, Zaher Shah sahab. Thank you very much for joining us and sparing time. My first question to you, Dr. Waseem, that why Afghan Taliban using actually the Indian tone right now, making proactive statements against Pakistan? Most of them are the provocative as well, threatening and blowing actually the jingoism, rather taking measures seriously and decisive action against the Fitna al-Kharij or TTP, and also the BLA, BLF and all other Baloch terrorist organizations which have took refuge over there. And who are actually, these are categorized by recently by an information interim minister of Kabul regime as friends, guests or refugees. Under the Kabul shelter, they are attacking and spreading terrorism across Pakistan, directly getting the Indian support as well. And the recent Cigar report that suggests that 21 billion US dollar actually transferred to the Taliban. It's a huge amount if it is so, because the report actually submitted to Congress, and that was actually tweeted by one of the American journalists as well, Lara Logan, and just commented by the upcoming US administration's one of the key figure, Elon Musk. And it was, according to that tweet, $40 million a week Taliban actually getting. So how do you see this whole scenario?
Let's see the bigger picture first, Faisal. Starting from Doha process, where Pakistan facilitated US and Afghan Taliban rapprochement, and the core argument in that was that Afghan soil should never be used against any country, and especially
particularly the United States.
Okay. But we have seen that Afghan Taliban did not abide by that commitment which they gave to the international community. And we have seen the other great powers like China and Russia have been deeply concerned on the rising phenomena of terrorism emanating from soil of Afghanistan. They have used their good offices, trilateral, multilateral and several forums, and even at bilateral level between Pakistan and Afghanistan. But somehow Afghan Taliban, we are rather disappointed by the way they have behaved in last about 3 years. Now, what could be the possible reasons? From my perspective, it is an utter frustration in the interim government of Afghan Taliban. They are not finding any space in the international community, and so therefore they want to use these non-state actors as a leverage to advance their foreign policy objectives, but somehow it cannot happen in isolation. So therefore they can be easily sellable commodity as a proxies to the other, like India, who want to see the destabilization of Pakistan. So therefore we have seen the similarity of tone between the Afghan Taliban and the India, and we have seen a lot of unanimity of views on the regional security architecture by both of them. So in that context, unfortunately, Afghan Taliban are rather using their safe havens of TTP as a leverage to destabilize Pakistan, or at least to bring in some foreign policy change on Pakistan's outlook towards Afghanistan.
So, your point well taken. Abdullah Khan Sahib, as Dr. Sahib has rightly pointed out, Afghanistan actually becomes the epicenter of terrorism. Kabul has decided long ago not to cooperate with Pakistan. Now, do you not think that the preemptive strikes and the destruction of those camps which are existing there at the Afghan soil, wherever these are, especially at the Pak-Afghan border, be the right way to save Pakistan from the menace of terrorism generating from Afghanistan, or there could be some space left to have dialogue with Kabul or whatever, because Pakistan has tried it from the last 3 years, but unfortunately Kabul never turned up.
Thank you, Faisal, for having me in your show. Actually, what the Afghan Taliban are doing is an exhibition of their dilemma. They were a militia or a militant group 3 years ago. Suddenly they came into power, and their linkages with TTP is historic. During their fight against the Western forces, TTP provided them shelters and human resource and many other things. So they have a long history of collaboration with each other.
Definitely,
and TTP has also pledged allegiance to Mullah Omar, then Mullah Akhtar Mansoor, and then Mullah Habatullah. So they are technically, you can say that they are same, despite having different objectives. So Afghan Taliban are not able to get out of that. Within Afghan Taliban, there are power centers. There are certain people within their regime who do not like this, and in their internal discussion, they say that this is not something we have to pursue, because this is a problem in international recognition, because every 6 months, UN Security Council issues a report about the presence of international terrorist groups. Regarding Pakistan, there is a very delicate matter which is surprising me. you know, Taliban have addressed the concerns of China regarding ETIM. They have relocated them to the south.
They have addressed the concerns of Uzbekistan as well, Turkmenistan,
Russia,
Tajikistan.
and almost everyone except Pakistan. Because Pakistan was at the forefront in advocating their case at international forums. Pakistan had an international summit in 2022 here in OIC summit, if you recall.
Yes, definitely, on Afghanistan.
Even the latest UN General Assembly, our Prime Minister once again argued in favor of engagement with them, even still despite
also supported the humanitarian assistance and all that.
Still, despite picking up dead bodies every day from the terrorism emanating from Afghanistan, still our Prime Minister advocated that international community should engage with them, because this is our big heart that we are actually trying to stabilize Afghanistan.
Recently also, Prime Minister during the cabinet meeting, he also compelled Afghan Taliban that Pakistan want cordial relations, economic relations, trade relations, but not at the cost of terrorism.
Yes, this is something which Taliban are hostage to that. Perhaps the TTP got an impression that if due to their insurgency of Afghan Taliban, the Americans go, that can happen here. No, that can never be happen here, because when Operation Zarbiaz was launched, the peak of terrorism in Pakistan at the highest point. We defeated that, and we will defeat this too.
Definitely.
And regarding one more thing, let me please. Last year, Pakistan conducted airstrikes not just in Afghanistan but Iran as well. So unfortunately, the terrorism and Baloch their sanctuaries are in Iran, while the TTP, Hafiz Gul Badr group, Daesh and Lashkar-e-Islam, they are in Afghanistan. Both are neighbors on the west. Actually, they are not helping us, and they are somehow allowing their soil to be used against Pakistan. This is very unfortunate.
Unfortunately, very unfortunate. Zaher Shah Sahib, Governor Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Faisal Karim Kundi, categorically said in a media interview just a couple of days back that TTP and Daesh elements are actually behind the Parachinar unrest. They instigated local facilitators to build bunkers, sectarian fault lines were exploited actually, and these terrorist elements intend to have destruction across district Kuram. Afghanistan is now openly interfering inside Pakistan and in Pakistan's internal affairs. What do you say, what's your opinion, what your experience suggests actually?
Well, thank you, Faisal. As Abdullah Sahab was saying and earlier the Dr. Sahab was mentioning, I would just carry forward their argument. Perhaps now, if we realistically, the imposition of an inconclusive government in Afghanistan by the US-led coalition, I think it's the root cause of many problems. Really, within 2-3 years, we proved wrong that perhaps a friendly Taliban government in Kabul would be helping us out to counter terrorism on our western border. But actually, it didn't work like that. And perhaps this was a misconcept even. The reason, obviously, Taliban, perhaps the Afghan Taliban, they still consider the fighting religious extremist element like ISK, the Fitna al-Khawarij, BLA, BNA, and all those who, in one or the other sense, are operating from Afghan soils as their half-brothers, and perhaps this is one reason why they're not taking action. But it should be very much realistic now that Pakistan has time and again conveyed to the Kabul administration, and the recent visit of former ambassador and special envoy Mr. Sadiq, perhaps it has been conveyed very clearly that all those bordering areas where the Kabul government could not take action, they have to share intelligence with Pakistan. Or another option was also extended that to relocate, like they have done in the case of TIP and the Uzbek militants, to Ghazni. But again, why they are not responding to Pakistan is an important factor, is that who will fund the relocation, rehabilitation and resettlement of these elements. Perhaps Pakistan would not be in a position, but my sources are saying that a friendly country has agreed to, finance almost $1 billion for this relocation. This is one point. But again, Pakistan has very clearly conveyed time and again that this is a the militant groups perhaps now are working in a close nexus. Very much clear why I is here. ISK intentionally, the Sarah Adams report and a couple of others, US think tanks have very clearly, in a very historical term, mentioned ISK intentionally brought to the Afghan border to the proxy, not to counter the Chinese influence. Also keep an eye on the Taliban government, the Kabul administration, as well as carry out such like sectarian attacks inside Pakistan. So now this Afghan border region is again used as a proxy battlefield, not only by India, as you mentioned in your intro, but also the US-led coalition because of its counter-China policy. They want to have a foot here, and these proxies, the form of Fitna al-Khawarij, ISK, and other those elements who are working against Pakistan interest, rather they are hitting Pakistan's economy by countering the BRI and the CPEC project. So this is another factor why the groups are having shelter. And perhaps, earlier you have mentioned that whatever Taliban are getting, but Taliban government in Kabul is the third largest recipient of US aid, $1.93 billion after Ukraine and Israel. So it means how much funding is. And despite that, there are no human rights, there are no women rights, there is no inclusive government. About 80 to 90% of the stakeholders, they are out of the Kabul government. But despite that, the US coalition is intentionally supporting the Taliban. Rather, we can say they are intentionally supporting those proxies which would be destabilizing the region. And as Abdullah,
Definitely, you are absolutely right, because you are right that if there is no democracy, it's okay. If there is no human rights, it's okay. If there is no education, it's okay. But when it comes to serve the US interests in any sort of a region, it's all okay for them. Unfortunately, and the same is going on because of the countering China policy, really. So, Zaher Shah, unfortunately, the highest number of violence and the acts of terrorism across the tribal districts bordering Afghanistan, especially in Kuram, we have seen in North and South Waziristan, and the districts like Tank, Bannu, Lucky Marwa, Dera Ismail Khan, they are the most concentrated areas, and most terrorist acts are happened over there. While in Balochistan, actually in Quetta, Kech, Kalat, Turbat and Musa Khel district, these are the areas where the terrorists are more striking, and they are having the terrorist acts. And this trend actually prevails from the last 3 years when the Taliban government or the interim authority came into power. This, do you not think that a comprehensive implementable strategy is actually required for these regions, particularly to eradicate the menace of terrorism?
well, Faisal, I think we have to totally revise this strategy. This counter-terrorism strategy need to be totally revised and revisited. Actually, we are still working on a containment policy and doing IBOs, like we are saying that more than 60,000 of those conducted in the last so many years, as the DGISPR was mentioning. But an important thing is we have to go for an aggressive policy. We have done the kinetic operations. We have dislodged the militants from their operational bases in North and South Waziristan, also along the Balochistan border. But still, we have to make our house in order. The sympathizer, the unfinished agenda of National Action Plan, which was more focused on countering terror financing, countering those sympathizers, sleeper cells in the urban part of Pakistan, we are not going for that. Perhaps we have to be very realistic to counter those sleeper cells, those sympathizers, those financial managers who are providing and pumping them in the money. And then another latest kind of a warfare, which is the e-warfare launched by these militant groups, whether it's the ISK, whether it's the Fitna al-Khawarij, they are running very organized e-platforms to engage the youth, the youngsters, motivate them through their agendas. And we have seen a number of those tribal youth, as well as youth from even Punjab, Karachi, and other urban areas. They are very much influenced from that. So we have to have a multi-pronged strategy. I'm not saying that we should not be negotiating. Afghanistan is our neighbor. We should be engaging them diplomatically, as we have sent Ambassador Sadiq. We have a couple of other those experts who know Afghanistan more than anyone else. But it's very important because you have to involve the real stakeholders who had expertise on the Afghan issues, on the local Pashtunwali codes and all these things. And then we have religious elements. I think, Madrasa Haqqaniya, which was, one of the breeding ground which most of the Haqqani network, the Sirajuddin and Khalifa were mentioning that perhaps it was their base from where the Haqqani network, got their most of the strength. We can engage those religious figures in Pakistan to, negotiate with them. And importantly, I think we have to convey a very strong message to the United States. We have to convey a very strong message to our brotherly countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia. They should be now coming forward. They should be engaging these Afghan Taliban to follow the Doha agreement and what they had promised during that.
Very important, very important point. Very important point. Your point well taken. Dr. Waseem, as Zaher Shah is very right on that approach, that we have to not only engage within our country, but also the international community as well, particularly our friends and brothers in Middle East. What about Indian support to the Afghans and also the Fitna al-Kharij, including the TTP and BLA? And then the Af-Indo factor, vigorous facilitation of the terrorist groups, and their small factions to join like Baloch Raji Ajoi Sangha and the Brass, which was named as, and the band Hafiz Gul Bahadur, then the Lashkar-e-Islam, and the factions of even some of the factions which are having some sort of lots of differences among the Islamic State Khorasan as well, ISK. So to come under the TTP umbrella, and then TTP BLA join hands in the various matters. This is ongoing approach, and approach is going on from the last many years actually. Now Indian factor is also came in that. Recently a statement issued by the Indian External Affairs Ministry, and not only they level lots of allegations on Pakistan to interfere in Afghan affairs, but also they said that Afghans killed over there, although the Afghan Zabiullah Mujahid statements which were issued time and again never said that Afghans killed. They clarified that those killed in Paktika in Barmal district, those were not Afghans actually. So India also now trying to provide some weapons to the Afghan Taliban. Recently Afghan Taliban claimed, particularly some of the ministers, that they have now activated 9M135 guided missiles as well, whatever they have the strength over there. Then Afghan Interim Authority is also engaged with some of the anti-Pakistan elements who are other than the terrorists and all that. So how do you see this, what is happening in Afghanistan actually? Why Afghanistan is so provocative against Pakistan? And why India jumped into once again to have active support for the Afghan Taliban interim regime?
Faisal, these things are not evolving in a vacuum.
Yes,
so
it is.
Let's have a look, a bigger picture at a systemic level. The regional factors, how Netanyahu unleashed his genocide not only in Gaza, but it went beyond Gaza. It was a regional escalation. And where we stand today, what is the condition in Lebanon, in Syria, and how they are now joined together and against Houthis. And they have also threatened that they will do something about Iran. So if we see this bigger picture and we see the Indo-Israeli nexus, so in that context, will these powers would ever like a stable Pakistan and self-sufficient Pakistan? I don't think so. And the kind of voice which we have been raising ever since last almost a year, and now when Pakistan joined in as the Security Council's non-permanent member, we again went for voicing concerns against the Israeli atrocities. So that way, there is a natural alliance between India and Israel against Pakistan. So in that context, a very ripe situation was provided by the Afghan Talibans, who have somehow self-assumed enmity against Pakistan. They developed immediately after taking over. Rather than being thankful to Pakistan that we have been supporting humanitarian affairs and at diplomatic levels in last about 3 decades. And more than 3 million Afghans are still in Pakistan. Afghan transit trade is totally dependent on Pakistan. So having seen this bigger picture, unfortunately, as we have seen, that enemy of your enemy is my friend.
Yes.
So in that context, Afghanistan provided a ready-made solution to India to launch a proxy war against
That is
Pakistan.
the popular mantra from the Cotillion theory in India,
Exactly.
really. So, Abdullah Khan sahab, banned fitna al-Kharij, even some of the factions of like BLA, all of the Baloch terrorist organizations who took refuge at the Afghan soil. If we just follow the patterns of their attacks and the way shown its supply chain of the sophisticated weapons, ammunition, the equipment, that is frequent. Having advanced training facilities, the communication systems, then recruitment mechanism. That's why the terrorists are able to attack multiple locations simultaneously, particularly we have seen in Balochistan. Blocking major roads, using suicide bombers, the bomb and the gun attacks, improvised explosive devices, and gaining the Baloch sympathies as well through the various tactics. So how do you analyze what is happening in Balochistan and how they are getting support and facilitation in Afghanistan?
There was very interesting pattern emerging in 2024 when we studied the different areas in Pakistan. Interestingly, TTP, Hafizul Bahadur Group, Lashkar-e-Islam, they all have different goals, while BLA, BLF, BRAS, and Sindhu Desh Revolutionary Army, they have different goals. But the one thing which was common, and that actually points out that there might be the handlers are the same, which was that some militants will appear with arms, ammunitions, weapons at some location. They will give an impression that we have taken over this territory and make some videos, and then they will disappear. The same thing you will see in DI Khan, Tang, Bannu, North Waziristan, Khyber Agency. Simultaneously, the same kind of things are happening in Balochistan. So who is giving the same strategy to both kind of groups who are actually different in their goals, ideology, and all kind of things, but they are doing the same?
Because their alma mater is the same, because in Afghanistan, the Afghan Taliban, then the Al-Qaeda faction, though it is weakened a lot, but they are providing the training facilities. It was also mentioned in the 1267 committee report as well of the United Nations Security Council, and obviously the India, and then the US weapons and money.
Here I will slightly differ, because I could not trace the presence of Baloch militants in Afghanistan. They are more in
Iran. Yes, definitely.
But
Iran is the main source.
But from where we had captured Kulbhushan Yadav, from where he came to Pakistan, from Iran at that time. So Iranian soil and Afghan soil both are being used by those who want to destabilize Pakistan, and Pakistani government have repeatedly said that this is India which is doing this, and these the patterns are corroborating the government's stance that this might be happening, and this is actually happening. While this is happening, but regarding Afghan Taliban, I would suggest to them that a panga with Pakistan will not be in their favor, because Pakistan is a nuclear state, Pakistan is a big country, Pakistan has very, very sophisticated and strong shock absorber. We had fought it, we defeated it, and we will
But Afghan Taliban are still not out of that silo, because they think that they have defeated Britain, they have defeated Russia, the Soviet Union, then the Americans or NATO.
One fact they need to understand: no government in Afghanistan could stay for long, which created problem for Pakistan since 1980 onwards. This is history. So they should mind the history. What is the history is telling?
Yes.
Pakistan is showing patience as a big brother, and they should actually recognize it and respect it. Otherwise, the way they are trying to get closer to India, if Pakistan starts to taking on board all the factions living in Turkey and all the opposition, what will happen in Afghanistan? Pakistan actually doesn't want to destabilize Afghanistan, but they are playing with our patience, which is actually very unfortunate.
So recently, your institute, PICS, had issued a comprehensive report. That was the yearly report regarding 2024 that tells us that Pakistan witnessed 40% higher the terrorist acts in 2024, approximately 905 terrorist attacks. Religious and the nationalist terrorist groups like Fitna al-Kharij, then the BLA, are on rise, and that needs reassessment of the threat perception. Do you think that the scale and design for a comprehensive response, then implementation of the political and tactical strategy in the terrorism affected areas particularly? And when the TTP is now changing its approach, earlier they have announced that they are going to attack only the security forces. Now they are saying and claiming that they are going to attack all other attached entities with the security forces, including the police and all others, and even they are not going to spare the common people as well. So how do you see this overall threat perception?
Actually, TT was always attacking civilians. This was their
Always,
pattern,
yes.
but
Yes.
Mufti Noor Wali Masood, because of the public pressure after APS attack, they actually avoided, just not for the sake of Islam or any teachings or any morality, they just for their public perception, because their recruitment had shrunk, and they
This fitna never ever be nearer to Islam really,
Yes,
because they have nothing to do with
have
Islam or
adopted.
Pakistan or anything else.
Now they are trying to actually instill fear in whole community, because our security forces were facing most of the casualties, but now they are expanding. But one thing we need to understand, that Pakistani security, what they did during 2024, this was the highest number of militant casualties since 2016 happened in 2024. That is also another dimension, which our security forces also gain a lot of successes against these groups. But I totally agree with you that we have to, because whole nation is suffering, we have to adopt a whole of a nation approach.
Yes,
which
definitely,
which not
definitely.
Includes only the kinetic approach.
Obviously.
We have to mobilize diplomatic channels and other, and this was actually mentioned in Azme Istehkam. Unfortunately, that could not take off properly, because some political entities, they politicize it, that was for the national cause. Unfortunately, they politicize it at the very beginning, that we are, although it was very much cleared by the military, by the government, that there is no operation like Sawat operation.
It was just a strategy actually.
It was a comprehensive strategy,
Yes.
and it had many strands. But unfortunately,
Unfortunately, the same happened with Azme Istehkam strategy. That was a strategy, not the operation.
I am talking about
yes.
Azme Istehkam.
Yes. Your point well taken. Actually, we have run short of time. So, Dr. Waseem, implementation of the revised National Action Plan. That is very important. The remaining 14 points which needs to be addressed to eradicate terrorism, and although Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan are the most sufferers, they are most affected provinces, but Punjab actually took lead in implementation across province and constituted the district coordination committees recently. Then especially to curb the smuggling, trafficking, ensuring madrasas or seminaries to be registered, establish the district narrative nerve centers as well, DNNCs, to neutralize the hostile propaganda which was going on. So how do you see the state of revised National Action Plan overall?
Faisal, while at the conceptual level it is fine, perfectly okay, because there was a requirement to revise the previous National Action Plan. However, the biggest dilemma,
it was already revived in 2021, yes.
Biggest challenge, I would say, is the implementation part.
Yes.
And in the current circumstances, we have to accept it that there is a huge political polarization in the country, which is actually affecting the economic stability and the security and everything. So in that context, even if we agree in apex committees on certain issues, but when we go back to their respective places, then we start talking against those which we have already supported. So unless we have something to really harmonize the national policies for the national cause, that should, I think, be a priority number one.
Definitely, definitely. Your point well taken. Zaher Shah Sahab, after the Federal Apex Committee of National Action Plan had approved the comprehensive operation against the terrorists inside Balochistan on Wednesday, November 19th, 2024, since then, many targeted operations were carried out in Balochistan, and the province witnessed a sharp decline in terrorist attacks. How do you see and overall picture in Balochistan, and also if you please elaborate that how much it is important to train our police, the counter-terrorism department, the CTDs, the civil intelligence agencies, and as these are the first line of defense when it comes to the urban areas particularly. Their recruitment on merit, then accountability, not only the optics, strengthening the policing system overall, the intelligence gathering networks, then reporting, and end to the culture of impunity, stern law enforcement, then strengthen the prosecution system, and also the modern training equipment and all that. So do you think that it is very important when it comes to save the urban centers, because police is always very much important when it comes to the urban areas? Zaher Shah sir.
Lack of the political will, I think it is very important. We have seen a majority of those political parties, when they are in power, perhaps they have different strategy to look at all these counter-terrorism operations, and when they are in a position, they have a different stance. So we have to be very realistic, I think, and above political mileage and about political gains, I think the parties who are doing politics are they are always trying to engage the general public in the name of democracy. They have to take care of the security of Pakistani state, because if Pakistan is here, they can have these perks and privileges, and they can enjoy their rule here. Otherwise, it's not possible. This is one thing. The second thing, I doubt that the police or the counter-terrorism department is equipped enough, not only in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Balochistan, to do large-scale counter-terrorism operations
across the country.
And their ability and capacity have to be upgraded, not only in terms of human resource, but also you have to equip them with the latest gadgets. As we have seen, the militants across the border, they are using those sophisticated weapons left over by more than $10 billion of those leftover weapons by the US-led coalition there. So this is another strategy. But importantly, I think the buffer zones, when it comes to Balochistan, when it comes to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the bordering areas are very important. And the important force which used to guard these buffer zones between the tribal areas and the settled urban areas was the Frontier Constabulary, or the FC. This is a kind of a force which was about to counter such like infiltration across the border infiltration. So we have a kind of a border force. The first line of defense before they come to the police and counter terrorists.
Obviously, you are right. You are right. Your point well taken, Zaher Shah Sahab. As Shah Sahab is very clear on that, the bordering regions, the urban areas, and the rural areas, there are definitely to have those strategies implementable, and must have to be implemented. Like he mentioned about the Frontier Corps, that is very important in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan as well. Then Rangers in Sindh and Punjab, basically the paramilitary forces. And then the levies as well, because these are important because they know each and every area. They are the locals, they are having lots of experience and also guarding the borders. Then also the Pakistan Customs, like Federal Investigation Agency, the Coast Guards, the Pakistan Maritime Security Agency, and other security agencies who are actually guarding our borders, whether it's maritime borders, whether it's the land borders. So how do you see, because as DG ISPR in his last briefing, he was very clear in that aspect that different mafias like traffickers, the drug traffickers, the human traffickers, the smugglers, they are all exploiting the situation, and that actually illegal money is actually supporting that terrorism. So how do you see the capacity building, the most modern equipments, the night visions and all others, because the terrorists has the latest equipment, even they are using the American equipment, they have the night visions, they have all these things. So how do you see to capacity, for the capacity building training and all others? Even we don't have the bulletproof vehicles available.
Let me point out what our Army Chief, General Asim Munir, have adopted a policy on our western border to curb the smuggling or illegal spectrum, which includes many other things.
Yes.
Including currency and human trafficking and smuggling, and that is actually very important aspect of all this terrorism, because there is a nexus between terrorism, smuggling and corruption inside our system. These are the three things. Terrorism itself, core terrorism, then smuggling, and then corruption in our system. So smuggling was hard hit by the policy during last 2 years, and you will see that a lot of smugglers are now funding these terrorist groups, because our security forces, especially on the borders, they have squeezed the movement, and that has.
And unfortunately, some of the political factions are also involved in that, particularly in the border areas.
Because a lot of money is coming, and doing politics in Pakistan needs money, and you are earning money from whatever sources you get.
It is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate, but I think our policy is, because this is they are pushing hard to soften the borders. You will see all the smuggling route. Recently, although we have to look at a holistic picture, but the small pieces also make the big picture. Lashkar-e-Islam, why it is activated in Tira Valley? Because it is historic smuggling route.
Yes.
Reactivated, and it was almost
in district
had
Khyber.
died. Its leader Mongal Bagh had been killed in 2021, and it was in disarray. But suddenly, certain elements put it together. Now,
and Hafiz Gul Bahadur has the same issue actually, and lots of other
same
people.
Issue, and same is happening in the other side,
yes,
in the Balochistan as well.
Bordering Iran.
But I think we need to be consistent on that. One thing, and we should not back off from that strategy.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, we have to fight on the narrative building, because our youth is, as you highlighted slightly in one of your comment, our youth, we need to protect our youth through a lot of counter narrative measures and a lot of engagements, because this is our youth which fell in the hands of these terrorist groups, and that is very unfortunate that side.
We need to engage youth, as well as we have to utilize youth in a positive way for the country's development.
Yes.
We have to give them a real chunk of their right, which is required actually. Dr. Waseem, very short, please, whether we are working well, in depth on data things, the data science, effective methodologies, the analytical skills, assessment and analyzing the capabilities to effectively actually unveil the security trends currently going on, and in future as well. Many experts believe that these insights and the foresights actually help get into the violent actors' mindset, the terrorism trends and next moves, and enhance capabilities against the terrorists and all inimical forces. When it comes to the state, government, the religious and the political and social leaders as well, their factions, parties, media and all other combining, promoting the tolerance particularly across the country, and then the critical thinking, promoting the logic and reason. That is very important if we want to grow and analyze things in a clear way for national development.
I think, Faisal, we have done reasonably well on data collection and data analysis. So that's why we've been keeping a track record since 2001 until today. So in that context, we are okay. But I think we need to work a lot on the de-radicalization part, de-radicalization of the terrorist itself, when whosoever has been captured, and also the de-radicalization and depoliticization of the minds of our young generation, because that has been affected the most through the electronic media and the digital media and the media, whatever is information and disinformation and misinformation which is going on. So therefore, we have to focus more on this, so that our young generation their mental faculties can be spent more towards the national development rather than being...
That is very important point, very important point. Dr. Waseem, thank you very much for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Abdullah Khan Sahab, for your very elaborative and candid views. And thank you very much, Zaher Shah Sahab, for being online and your own experience you have shared with us. Thank you very much for your presence. Viewers, as you have just listened to our very enlightened panelists, that Pakistan, now this menace which is in the form of terrorism, Pakistan is confronting that, and unfortunately recent visit of Pakistan's special envoy on Afghanistan, Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq, was very elaborative and very stressful, in a sense that even Pakistan given then the option to the Kabul interim authority that either to relocate these terrorists or take action against all those fitna al-Kharij or share intelligence with Pakistan. But it seems that Afghan interim authority is still reluctant. United States has a view that United States forces withdrawn from Afghanistan, but not the United States, not the Washington, as their money and weapons are still being used by the Afghan Taliban, as well as their guests and cousins and friends and refugees of the TTP, the Fitna al-Kharij. That is basically to counter China, unfortunately. That is the China containment policy of the United States, which is now in focus there in Afghanistan as well. We have to revive the counter-terrorism strategy, and we have to focus on this as a whole of the nation approach. The sleeper cell, the sympathizers, facilitators, abettors, and all others in urban areas particularly, they must have to be eradicated eradicated. And the cyber area, that must have to be in focus, because social media, the crypto and all of the currencies, then even the gaming chatting rooms, they are used for the terrorist activities. A multi-dimensional approach is actually required. The revised national action plan must have to be implemented, as implemented by, or the process is already going on in Punjab. That's good, but Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Sindh, all have to do it, because, and we have to focus youth, for the youth development, to engage them and to invest in them, rather than, because they are more than 60% of Pakistan's population, and they have every right to develop, because ultimately they will be the real catalyst of change in Pakistan. We all have to be at the same page. We all have to be united. The political differences must be get aside, and we have all the political parties, they must have to get united when it comes to eradicate the menace of terrorism. And this is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.